7 signs fasting is working for your female body, even if you cannot see it yet. If you are a woman over 40 who has been fasting and watching the scale do absolutely nothing, you might be about to quit. And that would be the exact wrong moment to stop. Because the scale is the last place results show up in a female body. The first places are invisible. And if you know what to look for, you would realize your body is already shifting in ways that come before the fat loss, not after. These 7 signs mean the process has started. The visible results are just delayed. The first sign is that your hunger is becoming quieter between meals. This one gets overlooked because people assume hunger management is just willpower. It is not. It is hormonal. Specifically, it is GLP-1, the same hormone that drugs like Ozempic and Mounjaro synthetically replace. GLP-1 is released in your gut after you eat, and it signals your brain that you have had enough. In women over 40, GLP-1 production drops alongside estrogen. When you first start fasting, hunger between meals is loud and aggressive because GLP-1 is blunted. As the gut adjusts, as the fiber and protein you are eating start feeding the bacteria that produce it, that signal strengthens. If you have noticed your hunger becoming more of a background hum instead of an urgent demand, that is your GLP-1 response beginning to recover. The scale has not moved, but your gut just changed, and that change comes first. The second sign is that you are sleeping more deeply and waking up more clear. Estrogen and cortisol are directly linked to sleep quality. When estrogen is low and cortisol is chronically elevated, which is the default hormonal state for many women past 40, sleep is fragmented, light, and unrestorative. The cortisol that should be low at night bleeds into the evening. When fasting is timed correctly, working with the morning cortisol curve instead of against it, cortisol gradually starts returning to a healthier rhythm. It peaks when it should, and it begins dropping when it should. That drop in the evening is what allows deeper sleep phases to occur. If your sleep has noticeably improved since you started fasting, if you are waking up feeling more rested, if you are not lying awake at 2 in the morning, that is a cortisol stabilization sign. It precedes visible fat loss because the hormonal environment that allows fat release is the same environment that allows deep sleep. They arrive together. The third sign is that you feel less bloated and more comfortable in your body even though your measurements have not changed. Bloating in women over 40 is often not a digestive problem. It is an inflammation and gut microbiome problem. When estrogen drops, the protective diversity of gut bacteria shifts. Certain bacterial populations that kept inflammation in check become less dominant. Fermentable fiber, the kind found in foods that also stimulate GLP-1, feeds those populations back. Within 2 to 3 weeks of consistent dietary change, gut microbiome composition measurably shifts. The bloating that seemed permanent begins to reduce. Your waistband feels different even when the tape measure says the same number. That reduction in gut inflammation is not cosmetic. It is a direct signal that the environment inside your digestive system is changing, and the same bacterial shifts that reduce bloating are the ones that improve GLP-1 output and begin loosening the grip on stored fat. Less bloating is not a consolation prize. It is a leading indicator. The fourth sign is that you are no longer craving sugar in the afternoon. Afternoon sugar cravings in women over 40 are almost always a blood sugar and cortisol story. When cortisol sits elevated through a long morning fast and then insulin spikes at the first meal, blood sugar crashes in the early afternoon. The body interprets that crash as an emergency and sends an urgent signal for fast fuel. That signal feels like a craving for something sweet or starchy. It is relentless because it is physiological, not psychological. When fasting is timed to work with the cortisol curve, when the first meal lands in the window where cortisol is naturally falling rather than still climbing, the blood sugar pattern changes. Insulin response smooths out. The afternoon crash becomes less dramatic. and the craving that used to derail everything becomes manageable or disappears entirely. If you have noticed that the 3 o'clock pull towards sugar has gotten quieter, that is a blood sugar stabilization that is happening at the hormonal level. The fat loss that follows a stable insulin pattern is slower to show, but far more durable than anything produced by pure restriction. The fifth sign is that your energy is more even across the day instead of coming in spikes and crashes. This is one that women consistently report before they see any change in their body composition, and it consistently gets dismissed as not the point. It is absolutely the point. Even energy across the day is a direct reflection of hormonal stability. When cortisol is chronic and unsteady, energy mirrors it. Wired in the morning, depleted by midday, desperate for caffeine or sugar by afternoon. When blood sugar stabilizes, when GLP-1 is working properly to slow digestion and smooth out glucose curves, energy becomes more linear. You feel functional at 2 in the afternoon without needing to manufacture it. That steadiness is not a side effect of the protocol working. It is evidence of the metabolic shift that makes fat release possible. A body that is still in hormonal chaos cannot prioritize releasing stored fat. A body with stable energy across the day is a body that has shifted its threat assessment, and it is beginning to read fat stores as available fuel rather than emergency reserves. The sixth sign is that your mood is more stable and you feel less anxious or irritable without an obvious reason. Estrogen has direct effects on serotonin and dopamine pathways. When estrogen drops, mood regulation becomes less reliable. But the connection most women miss is that cortisol dysregulation, not just estrogen loss, is driving a significant portion of the anxiety, irritability, and low-grade emotional instability that shows up after 40. Cortisol activates the threat response system. When it is chronically elevated, the body is in a constant low-level state of alarm. That alarm state has a mood signature: edgy, reactive, flat, or weepy, for reasons that do not match the circumstances. When the fasting pattern begins correcting the cortisol rhythm, that alarm state quiets. The mood stabilization that women report, feeling calmer, less reactive, more like themselves, is the emotional surface of a cortisol correction that is simultaneously changing how the body handles fat storage. The same shift. The mood just reports it first. The seventh sign is that you are not thinking about food constantly. This sounds simple. It is actually the clearest signal that the hormonal system is coming back into balance. Food preoccupation in women over 40 is not a character flaw or a lack of discipline. It is what happens when GLP-1 is low, when blood sugar is unstable, when cortisol is telling the body it is under threat, and when the hunger signals coming from the gut are amplified and unregulated. The mental noise around food, thinking about the next meal, calculating, negotiating, obsessing, is a symptom of a system that cannot regulate itself. When GLP-1 recovers, when blood sugar stabilizes, when cortisol stops reading every fasting window as a famine signal, the mental space that food occupied begins to shrink. You think about food when you are actually hungry, and then you stop. That shift in mental quiet is one of the most underestimated signs that the underlying hormonal work has started. The body is no longer sounding an alarm. It is beginning to trust the inputs it is receiving. And a body that trusts its inputs is a body that will start releasing what it has been holding on to. None of these 7 signs show up on a scale. All of them arrive before the visible results do. If you are seeing even 2 or 3 of them, the system is moving. The belly fat that has not shifted yet is not a sign of failure. It is the last layer of a protection response that is still winding down. The body built it slowly. It releases it the same way. What matters is that the signals underneath are